It's time for this week's episode of Brandon Sports Talk, featuring in-depth interviews from those who are trending in the world of athletics. And now, here's the host of Brandon Sports Talk, Brandon Pate.
Welcome back to Brandon Sports Talk. In today's episode, I have the privilege to interview the Chowan University heads acrobat and tumbling coach Haley Piglowski. How are you doing today?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing good. Can you talk about how you knew that you wanted to get into college coaching?
Sure. So, when I was an acrobatics and tumbling athlete myself at Gannon University, around the time of my junior, beginning of senior year, I, wasn't really sure what I wanted to do with my degree yet. So, I had a little bit of background in coaching when I was in high school at my local gymnastics gym, and I was really passionate about that. So, I didn't really need my degree for it, but I did a little bit. So I knew that I wanted to coach. And, over the past 4 years at Gannon, I fell in love with the sport, and I just wasn't ready to give it up. So that's kind of what led me into college coaching.
You talk about, of course, your time as the assistant coach at your alma mater.
So I wasn't actually the assistant coach at my alma mater. So I graduated from Gannon. And then after I graduated, I was the assistant coach at Urbana University. So I was only there for about a year under the head coach of Courtney Stack. And I was there for their inaugural season. It was a great learning experience. We really had to get creative with a team of 9 girls, which typically on an acro and tumbling team, for those who aren't familiar with the sport, first year teams pretty much usually have between 15 to 20 athletes, and then more established teams have anywhere from 30 to 40. So we were working with 9 girls, so we really had to get creative with practices and how we were going to compete. So it definitely was a great learning experience and kind of learning to dip my toe into college athletics as well.
What was it like going from college athletics to the high school level when you went to Beavercreek?
Sure. So at the time that I was at Urbana University, I was also coaching high school gymnastics at Beavercreek High School. And it definitely was a different experience for me. I came from club gymnastics as a high school athlete. And club gymnastics versus high school gymnastics is very different in terms of skill levels. You might have athletes who are just doing gymnastics as their gym credit. You have girls who are doing club gymnastics, but are also on their high school team. So that was also a great learning experience. And I was still very passionate about gymnastics at that time. So I still was able to kind of feed both of the sides of athletics that I came from with gymnastics and coaching acro at the same time. I was the assistant coach at Beavercreek under Rick Reedy, and he was great, taught me a lot of things about, handling athletes with the more talented skills versus the kids who didn't have as many skills. So it was just another good experience about being creative and taught me a lot about the coaching style that I wanted to bring to Chowan.
What was it like whenever you went from high school to Chowan?
So after I left Beavercreek in Urbana, it definitely was a different experience going from both of those assistant coaching positions right to head coaching. I feel as though with other sports, a lot of head coaches spend a lot of time in that assistant role for a lot of years before they jump into head coaching. But with the sport of acro and tumbling, a lot of coaches, they go right from graduating from school either right to assistant coach and then head coach a couple years down the road, or right into that head coaching position. So while I was the assistant coach at Urbana, I quickly realized okay, I think I can definitely take over this head coaching role. So that's when I started to apply to the newer schools or schools that were having some turnovers. So that's when I applied to Chowan and I got the job, and it was a very exciting time. It was, I won't lie, it was a little bit scary just because I wasn't really sure what I was getting myself into. I knew what the job entailed, but sometimes there's more than that meets the eye. So I was like, all right, let's jump into this.
Can you talk about, of course, the culture that you have built for the acrobat and tumbling program at Chowan?
Yeah. So when I arrived at Chowan University in 2019 in the fall semester, I was the first head coach for that program. So when I got hired, I was building the program from the ground up. So there were no athletes, there was, no practice uniforms, no equipment, no nothing. So, I was kind of in charge of really building the program from the ground up. And at that time, there were a few girls already at the university that had background either in high school gymnastics, competitive cheer, high school cheer, or competitive gymnastics. So, I had a meeting with a bunch of students at Chowan and said, hey, here's this new program. If you would love to be a part of it, let's do it. And that was in the fall of 2019. And then everybody knows in the spring of 2020, that's when COVID happened. So we weren't able to get started like I'd wanted to. So then when the team came back on campus, so I had those returning girls and then a few new incomers, we were really excited to start practicing in the fall. We still had some, CDC guidelines we had to follow in terms of social distancing. But then in August, I was diagnosed with stage 2 Hodgkins lymphoma. So, on top of the worldwide pandemic we were going through, there was also this, intimate thing that our team was going through as well. So we had to hold off with practice in the fall semester. So then, we kind of did some team workouts while I was on campus. And then while I was at treatment, the girls would kind of work out on their own time. But in the spring semester is when, that culture really kind of grew. The girls got really close. We started learning skills. We started practicing and weightlifting more. I was at practices more. So I would definitely say that our culture here at Chowan is definitely more of like the family vibe. My girls, they eat, sleep, do study hall, they practice, they're always together. They're a bunch of sisters, they'll call me mom every once in a while, and I'm like, oh gosh, like I'm not there yet. But so they're really like my kids, and I treat them like that. I hold them accountable, they hold each other accountable for their actions. But the biggest thing is, they really came together in my team. I've been very blessed about how humble they are. Whereas the other teams on campus, they were able to compete and they were able to play this year, but my team wasn't able to, just because of the things that I was going through. And that definitely took a toll on myself, because I felt very bad. Like, I felt as though I took away that experience for them, but they were by my side every step of the way. When I was at treatment, they would text me like, hey coach, how are you doing? And I'm like, I'm doing good, like just chilling here, like getting my chemo. So, I've been very fortunate to have a great group of girls here. And hopefully that culture continues throughout the years. But we're definitely excited to, have our first season, active season in the fall this year.
As you look forward to this fall season, what is a typical game day going to be like?
So I'm not really sure what a typical game day would look like at Chowan, just because we haven't competed yet. But with the group of girls there that I have, they're very outgoing. So I'm sure it'll be, very exciting. We're looking forward to having our fans, be at our competitions, just because we haven't really been able to showcase the skills that we have. We actually just had an open practice yesterday on campus. So some of the university got to see a little bit of the skills we've been working on and stuff like that. But from my experience at Urbana and as a student athlete at Gannon, I can tell you that game day is definitely very exciting. You have some of those fans that know the sport a little bit, or kind of, they know what like gymnastics looks like, or they know what, competitive cheerleading looks like. And that's kind of what our sport is. It's kind of a good mix of both of those sports combined. So they'll see like a lot of skills that are very similar to those two different sports. But, and then you also have those fans that have no idea what to expect. So you just hear a lot of oohs and ahs the whole time. And it really makes the athletes feel good that like people are really excited and very interested in what they're doing. But, typically we'll have a 70-minute warm up before the competition actually starts. And then all of the athletes will get introduced, both teams go to their respective, sideline mats, and then it's very head to head, where one team will go, then the next team will go, and then they'll do the next event. And then after every event is done, they'll give you the score. So, you have real-time scores, so you can always keep up with what's going on. And sometimes it can be a real nail biter, which those are always my favorite competitions, because you never know who's going to win. But yeah, it's definitely very exciting on game day.
Of course, what is the recruitment process like for prospective student athletes that are looking to play acrobats and tumbling?
Yeah. So I always, reach out, whether it's I reach out to, prospects, or they reach out to me. But, I always have them, during the time of their junior year, fill out our recruiting form on our athletic website, just so that I can get some basic information, whether it be their academics, just because, they are going to college for academics first. So I always love to see, how they're doing in high school, whether it be their overall GPA or their test scores. And then to see what skills that they're coming in with and what skills they're currently working on. So I always like to get just a little bit of information from them just through that form. And then I usually schedule, a couple of phone calls with them and their families, just to kind of talk to them about what they're looking for in a university, what they're looking for in terms of an athletic program. Now this year I've done it a little bit differently, where I'll schedule virtual calls, just because sometimes some people aren't comfortable, coming on to campus to meet. So we'll just do a little Zoom call or a Google Meet, just to kind of at least see each other face to face if we can't be together in person. But and then we'll typically schedule those campus visits, so that way they can see the campus in person, meet with the team, possibly see a practice and see how my coaching style is. And then, really just answer any questions that they may have. And then by the time their senior year comes around, we'll have them back on campus for an official visit. Hopefully, by next year, COVID will be over, so we can have some students stay over on campus. And then from there, we'll, talk about scholarships, if those are kind of in question. And then we'll talk a little bit about, official offers and stuff like that. And then we'll just go from there.
Who are some of the teams that you play in your conference?
Sure. So there's a couple newer teams in the conference, and there's a couple more established teams, but more of the established teams are King University, Limestone University, Converse College. And then some of the newer teams that we'll be competing against next year are Coker, Emmanuel, and then I think there's going to be some associate members like Lander. I think they were a first year program this year, but we'll compete against them next year. But it's really exciting, because there's a good mix of, those established teams and newer teams. So we'll kind of get a lot of experience just within our first year next year.
What do you look forward to accomplishing in next year's season?
I think for next year, definitely having a full year to actually, prepare for season versus, everything we had to deal with this past year. So I'm just really excited to get a full year with my athletes, really to have that time to prepare. But I'm excited to really go, head first into the season, just because this past year, the Conference Carolinas held the first ever conference championships. And I told my girls this year, like, okay, we had a good practice year this year, and next year, we're really training hard so that we can make it to the conference championships, because that's my ultimate goal. And that's first and foremost. And then once we accomplish that, then it's okay, now we're really going to go for national championships, because that's where I want to end up at some point.
What advice would you give upcoming high school athletes looking to get into tumbling and acrobats?
Yeah. So I definitely recommend, whether they have backgrounds in gymnastics, in competitive cheerleading, high school cheerleading, if they have backgrounds in just acrobatics, like rhythmic gymnastics and stuff like that, to just keep their options open. Because I know from personal experience, I came from a gymnastics background, and for me, it was like gymnastics or nothing else. So just to really keep an open mind that acro and tumbling was created for women by women, so that they could have another opportunity to compete in college gymnastics. And just my other, advice to high school athletes, and I know sometimes I was a high school student athlete, so I understand how hard it is to kind of keep up with communication, but just communicating with coaches, are we in your top 5? Are you no longer interested? Because this is our full-time job, and you're not going to hurt our feelings if you're going to say, okay, I'm not really interested in Chowan. I would much rather know that versus kind of guessing, what's going on in their mind. So I always give that advice to prospective student athletes that talk to me, just tell me what you're feeling and we can go from there.
What advice would you give college students that are looking to get into college acrobats?
I would tell them, just go for it. I mean, I'll be honest, at first it seems kind of scary just because you go right from being a student athlete to coaching. But just if you have that confidence, just believe in yourself, and ask questions because I always tell my girls, whether they're my student athletes or a colleague, like just ask questions. I love answering questions. I love, asking questions myself because I feel like that's how I learn better. But, the NCATA also does have a program for student athletes who are looking to get into coaching. So it's a nice program that kind of helps them introduce them into the coaching world, because sometimes that can be a little bit scary. Just, okay, now you're in charge of a whole program. Good luck. So this kind of helps them prepare for that a little bit better.
What advice would you give upcoming future college coaches looking to get started?
I think for me, my advice would be just to have patience. The saying Rome wasn't built in a day. I think some people, really are they a lot of coaches really want to build their programs within the first couple years, but I've quickly come to realize that it takes time to really get it up and running, and you just have to have patience. It's kind of like watering a plant. You just kind of need to tend to it every day and it'll grow as fast as it can, but patience is definitely the biggest thing.
That's wonderful advice. Where can my listeners find you at on social media, along with, of course, the program at?
Right. So, in terms of our program, we're on both Facebook and Instagram. Both of them are at Chowan Acro and Tumbling. And today is actually our first annual Chowan Giving Day. So, if anybody wants to donate to our program to help us reach our goal of, keeping up with maintenance in our facilities or helping us buy new equipment to increase our skill levels, we would definitely appreciate that. But like I said, you can find all that information on our Instagram page, which is Chowan Acro and Tumbling.
Thank you again for your interview, Haley. Thank you again, Haley, for your interview, and best of luck in your future with Chowan.
Thank you.
You can find Brandon Sports Talk on Facebook at Brandon Sports Talk, Instagram at Brandon Sports Talk, Twitter at @talk_Brandon, and you can find me on YouTube at Brandon Sports Talk. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Thank you again, Haley Piglowski, for your interview, and best of luck.
Thank you.
You've been watching Brandon Sports Talk. Please feel free to like, share, and subscribe to Brandon Sports Talk on social media and on YouTube.